A tape, a warning, a master chained beneath a cracked bell, a prince selling the city for a seat on the wrong throne. 4 shadows against an impossible pact. If the church opens its doors, the night falls. If the mask falls first, the city awakens. The cassette tape was the size of Dália's stubbornness. The crow landed on the edge of the rooftop, beak glowing in the neon, and dropped the black rectangle at her feet. Dália's faded red mohawk caught fire under the city lights as she crouched down. The old recorder in her pocket purred, chewed the tape, spat static until Nestor's voice broke through, hoarse, tired, shredded by interference. The prince's ties to the Sabbat. If I don't return, don't trust the tower. The tower, the Camarilla, the family that taught etiquette with clenched fists. Dália clenched her teeth as if to hold back a scream. The tape clicked. The message ended. The dawn wind brought the smell of burnt oil, stale rain, the electric breath of the metropolis. Fine, she spoke to the crow, to herself, to Nestor, and to every dead soul still walking. We'll do it our way. The crow tilted its head, as if in agreement. Then it flew away. The city had a subterranean heart, and inside that heart, a room. Kira lived there, surrounded by cables that blinked like abyssal fish and fans pushing hot air through tunnels no one else wanted. Her face looked like an ancient map, full of scars and furrows, her eyes 2 cold lanterns. When Dália descended the iron staircase, the Nosferatu didn't even turn. If you came here for secrecy, you came to the right place, Kira said, fingers dancing across the keyboard. Nobody comes down here willingly. My master vanished after getting too close to the prince. Dália tossed the tape on the desk. I've got this, and I don't have time. Kira pressed play. She heard the cut-off phrase, the warning, nodded as if she had been expecting it. Rats brought me crumbs, she said, gesturing. A bold rat climbed onto her shoulder, whiskers twitching. Off the books donations, unmarked convoys with headlights off, meetings in historic preservation zones. Smells rotten. You in? Dália asked. For curiosity. Kira gave a dry smile. And because I owe a few favors to those who'd love to see that Ventru fall off his high heels. Then it's us. Kira typed a command. On the damp wall, a calendar unfolded. Dates marked in red. Test blackouts. 3:27 in the morning. Specific districts. Another one scheduled in 2 nights. If you want to find herds moving in the dark, that's the time. And who else? Someone who speaks the city's language, Kira said, and the rat made a sound that Dália swore was laughter. And a scholar in a hurry to climb ladders. Saul looked like someone who had learned to smile late in life and spent the rest of it trying to practice. The bookstore smelled of dry paper and wax. Dália entered without knocking. Saul raised his eyes from a bound book, sighing like someone who knew storms by name. I thought you'd handle this by kicking doors down, not knocking on the right ones, he said. I'd rather break the wrong ritual than the right door. Dália stepped closer. The prince is buying the Sabbat's silence. My master got caught in the middle. I can't take this to the Camarilla without ending up ash. You've got eyes for things that don't show. Saul studied her with the focus of a man weighing a dangerous hypothesis. Theories aren't enough. I need proof. And limits. Limits are just the fancy name for fear. He smiled, resigned. Ambition is also a compass. And I'm tired of promoting people who think Latin is a dog's name. He closed the book. I'll come with you for research. The pause fell between them like a coin, and because some debts can only be paid with courage. Whose? Saul slipped the answer into his pocket, along with his pen. Enough for Dália to know he carried more than ink. Balu climbed out of the manhole like someone visiting the upper floor. The cover spun, his hands released the iron, and the Gangrel inhaled the street air with the calm of someone who handpicks the breeze. A black cat padded to his boots, rubbing against the leather. Balu knelt, listened intently. To Dália, it was like watching a man decipher the city in its dream language. A Ventru in a hurry, a church that reeks of old candles and sulfur, and birds that won't touch the bell, he said, standing. The street spoke, and they don't like what they heard. What does the street get if it talks more? Dália pressed. Silence for a while and food for the pups. Balu looked at Kira, at Saul, then back at Dália. And I get to see the prince trip over his own polish. Then come. He came, and the city with them. The investigation spread through the night like good mold. Kira wormed through municipal servers with digital parasites that slipped in and out without leaving marks. Spreadsheets bloomed on her screen like nocturnal flowers, a chain of donations and contracts leading back to the prince's white hall, ending in a warehouse with far too much security for a pile of rubble. Saul traced circles of ash on abandoned floors, filled buckets with tap water, until reflections revealed people who should not appear. Alvaro Santoro, immaculate suit, shaking hands with a priest whose eyes were frozen glass, an iron chalice marking shadows on ancient stone, symbols Dália didn't have a name for. He wrote, translated, sweated. Balu spoke to pigeons by day and bats by night. Dogs knew the roots, cats knew the secrets, rats knew where the city buried what it wanted forgotten. He stitched the threads like braiding the hair of someone beloved. Dália slept when she could, between half memories of Nestor and the urgency humming in her jaw. Across the wall where she smoked, someone had spray-painted, "The King without a mask falls." 2 nights later, Kira projected a grim timeline on the concrete wall of the station. Unmarked truck, 4 SUVs with ghost plates. 1:13 a.m. Destination Historic Preservation Zone. She zoomed in. Church of St. Lucia of the Forsaken. "The pigeons avoid the bell tower," Balu said. "The bats make a wide turn." He scratched his beard. "Something down there's alive, but doesn't want to be called living." "Perfect hour for sermons," Saul murmured. "And sacrifices." "My master," Dália said, and the words split the air in two. They used an abandoned building across from the church as their den. Kira spread eyes everywhere. Rats with micro-cameras slipped through cracks, vanished into the dark, reappeared under rotting pews. The crypt looked like a mouth with a sleeping tongue, candles in the corners like lit teeth. The corridor led to a stone room, an altar, a metal wheel glowing even through the camera lens. Nestor appeared, chained, eyes of a man who had watched the world burn and still carried matches in his pocket. Dália gasped as if struck. "Master!" The feed trembled when a hooded creature lifted its head, glassy eyes fixing on the micro-camera. The signal died in a blink. "They know someone's here," Balu said. "They know noise has arrived." Kira bit her lip, already mapping exits. "And we came to break silence." The dead signal hissed through the empty building. The micro-camera had gone dark like an eye torn out, and Kira chewed her lip while Windows rebooted. Balu whispered to the messenger rat, asking for another path. Dália paced, anger stuck in her teeth. Saul, silent, tried to smooth his jacket. The ordinary nervous gesture opened the mouth of his inner pocket for a heartbeat, just enough. A dull glint, more a sigh than a shine, caught Dália's eye. A blackened silver ring, its top a shard of translucent resin with a single hair trapped inside, floating like a crack in ice. "What's that?" Her voice was low, but the air heard it. Saul froze, hand still on the fabric. He drew the ring out with the care of someone touching a wound. "Commitments," he said, not hiding, face exhausted. Dália didn't need Latin. The prickle ran from wrist to nape, the kind of electricity blood recognizes before the mind does. Kira lifted her eyes from the keyboard. Balu took one quiet step closer. "Whose hair is it?" Dália asked. "Mine," Saul answered, steady, as if accepting sentence. "His blood, my true name and this strand, the sum that binds. I gave it when I wanted another rung on the ladder. He charged me the rest." The ring seemed to have its own gravity in his palm. Dália stared at the dark circle and saw a map of the prison. Not the prince's trinket, but a collar braided from Saul's own body. "So you didn't just owe favors," she breathed. "You gave away a piece of yourself." "I did, and I hate myself for it," he said without raising his voice. "That's how I got close enough to see the pit, and that's how he drags me back every time." Balu touched the ring with 2 fingers, not to take it but to feel the cold. "The city doesn't like objects that boss people around," he murmured. "Can it be broken?" Saul closed his fist as if protecting and rejecting it at once. "It can. There's a ritual that cuts the bond, but it doesn't cut for free. I burn what's on the other end of the thread. Memories, names, the corners of my own face. I might walk out free and also less me." Silence. Kira's fingers hovered over the keys. "And if you don't cut it, he pulls you whenever he wants," she said flat. Saul nodded. Dália opened her hand. "Give it to me." He did. The metal kissed her skin with a fevered whisper. She held it for a long beat, feeling the dull vibration, not of power, but of possession. Then she gave it back. "You made the wrong choice," she said. "Now make the right one. Cut it." Saul slipped the ring away again, no longer hiding it, like a man admitting to his own shadow. Kira returned to the code. Balu called the bats by name. Across the street, the church took a long breath. "Then light it," Dália finished. And that sealed the night. The church looked asleep when they arrived. It wasn't. Balu blew a whistle no human could hear. Pigeons lined up along the ledges. Dogs took positions on the side street, quiet and tense. Bats clung to the dark ceiling. Kira tapped the tablet with the delicacy of someone touching a secret. The block's lights flickered, sighed, and died. The dawn held its breath. Dália pushed the door. The wood groaned low. The smell of old wax and rust opened the way. At the center, the altar. At the back, Abaddon, heavy robes hanging, voice like fire in a cold room. Nestor raised his face when he saw her, and for a moment the whole city was nothing but two eyes meeting in the dark. "Too late or too early, daughter," he rasped, smile both knife and embrace. "In time," she answered. The Sabbat emerged from the shadows like parts of the shadow itself. Dália moved first, fast, brutal, honest. The first one fell. The second lost the world when bats wrapped around his face, scratching, blinding. The third backed off because outside, the dogs were growling in unison like thunder trapped underground. Saul knelt on the marble, drew a sigil with blood, whispered ancient words. Something in the air snapped, like an invisible rope tugged from inside his chest. His eyes trembled. "The name they gave me, the fire I refuse," he murmured, and the phrase opened a rift. Abaddon raised an iron chalice. The metal seemed to cry. Nestor pulled on the chains. They bit back. He locked eyes with Dália. "If you free me now, the wheel drags you down with me." "Who said I'd let go?" She bit into her arm, pressed blood to his wrist. Smoke hissed. Saul's sigil erupted in cold flame, licking the chains, erasing marks, gnawing carved names. Dália felt part of her lose ground, and another part learn to fly. Side doors burst open. Men in suits, firm hands, silenced weapons. Alvaro Santoro entered, immaculate as always, silence wrapped around him like a coat. "They promised me liturgy," he said, bored, scanning the chaos. "You delivered a nightclub brawl." "Traitor!" Dália spat. "Ugly word." Alvaro adjusted his tie. "I prefer founder of opportunities. The city is listening." Kira's voice slid from nowhere. "And it doesn't like your accent." Alvaro blinked. "Just a second. Enough for Saul's sigil to bite something else." The Tremere's aura cracked. Her bond shattered inside, cold shards crawling through his bones. Saul staggered, smiling with the desperate serenity of someone who pays the full bill at once. "The chain is broken," he said, more to himself than anyone else. Shooter number 3 pulled the trigger. The dry sound cut the nave. Balu yanked Dália and Nestor aside. The bullet bit into stone. Chaos became law. "Can you turn the ritual against them?" Dália shouted at Saul amid the storm. "It always can." He coughed blood, still smiling. "But it'll cost. Pay." Saul flipped the sigil like a mirror. The shadow circling beneath the altar bit back at the altar itself. Abaddon barked a word that didn't belong in his mouth. Two Sabbat dropped to their knees, eyes lost, as if the names holding them had been erased from the notebook of existence. "Profanation," Abaddon snarled. "Recycling," Saul replied. Kira, hidden in her web of shadows, triggered another sequence. Outside, luxury cars choked to silence, locks clicking with the sound that always announces panic. Alvaro felt the night slip through his carefully groomed fingers. He tried to rescue his smile like a portrait falling off the wall. Gestured. His guards turned their guns, not at the intruders, but at the Sabbat. The alliance dissolved in gunfire. In the crooked crossfire, Dália, Balu and Kira pulled Nestor and Saul to the side, rushing down the sweating stone stairs into the crypt. The walls dripped. Saul bled. Nestor limped but smiled as if finally fitting back into his own body. "I told you not to look for me," he whispered to Dália when they reached the side street. "And you taught me never to obey," she shot back, shoving him into Kira's van. The cracked bell tolled on its own as the door slammed shut. Inside the van, the air tasted of iron and promise. Kira pushed a needle into Saul's arm. He closed his eyes like someone moving house, praying not to forget the address. Balu stroked the head of a stray dog that appeared out of nowhere, curling at his feet. "Their plan was simple," Nestor said, voice regaining muscle. "Blackouts, pockets of entry, open the gates like an invitation. I was the match to light the right fire." He looked at Saul. "That one burned the map." "I tore the arrows," Saul corrected, choosing his words carefully. "The path still exists." "I streamed everything," Kira added, eyes glued to her screen. The prince's voice, the promise not to destroy, the offer of a throne in the wrong sect. The city heard. The Primogen heard. Important people are waking up with headaches. "Alvaro won't fall easily," Dália said, breathing deep, her mohawk catching neon that wasn't even there. "But he'll slip," Kira grinned toothlessly. And now the floor's soap. The improvised Elysium was a concrete auditorium, cold chairs, murmurs buzzing like a swarm. On the screen, Kira's edited cut played, Alvaro's voice made of polished steel, Abaddon's made of damp coal. The promises, the dates, the guarantee of a position of power when the city is taken. Cinema, tribunal, spell. Alvaro entered with his usual care, as if expensive shoes were talismans. His smile came out sculpted in porcelain. He opened his mouth. Fabrications. The words slid smooth. Anarchist media terrorism. Brujah impatience. This is... The side door opened again. Nestor walked in, supported by Balu, burnt chains still around his wrists like bracelets from a wrong carnival. Silence fell with a taste. If it's a fabrication, then my blood is fake, Nestor said, raising his arms. Who wants to test it? An old primogen stood. Veins of marble, voice like stone. We've heard promises that should not be made. He looked at Alvaro like a crooked painting. We've heard deals that cannot be struck. You bargained us and ours. This calls for stone. You don't understand the game. Alvaro shot back, mask still in place. I secured the future. You secured your own, Dália said from the crowd, arms crossed, and signed it with our breath. The murmur swelled to a tide. The word deposition surfaced, timid first, then sharp. Alvaro adjusted his tie with shrinking motions. When the hammer fell, metaphorical but heavy, his face lost something a mirror could never restore. Kira kept her smile to herself. Saul, seated a few rows back, touched his chest like checking an empty pocket. Who am I now? He whispered, not asking for an answer. Balu leaned a shoulder against his. Friend, until further notice. On the rooftop, the city sprawled below like a tired, watchful beast. Dália and Nestor leaned against the ledge. The wind smelled of burnt wires and the sweetness that comes after fear. The war isn't over, Nestor said, watching the antennas like forests. It only changed address. I've got a better map, Dália replied. Friends. Kira emerged from the shadows as if she'd been there all along. Balu arrived with a crow perched on his shoulder, the bird's yellow eye glaring at the world. Abaddon vanished from the church, Kira reported curt. Took what he wanted. He'll try again, at another cracked bell. The city whispered, Balu said, stroking the crow. He's gathering shards to forge a new knife. I can rebuild part of what I lost. Saul appeared last, paler but whole, gaze of someone newly born and curious about it. Not all. Maybe what's left is better. Dália nodded. The knight nodded back, full of work. The important thing, she said, staring at a horizon that promised nothing but more horizon, is that now we rebuild together. And when the bell tolls again, we'll be the first to answer. The crow spread its wings, the city breathed. The cassette in Dália's pocket weighed less. The street's song played the same tune, different for those who learned how to listen. And the night carried on, as it always does, full of secrets waiting for those who know how to break them without shattering.